Anyone doing 1984 here? So this is a human experiences question here. Explain how 1984 explores individual and collective human experiences. Okay, so what are the keywords there? Well, individual and collective. It's a pretty basic one. I'd be surprised if you got something this general, but to be fair, I did see a question that just talked about personal and shared nature of human experiences. Although I think that question also had storytelling in there as well, where you need to engage with the form. If a question asks you about storytelling, they're really wanting you to engage with the form of the text. E.g., with this one, it's like this is a dystopian fiction novel. It's also speculative. It's a speculative novel. It's futuristic. All of these things are to do with, well, these things are to do with the genre as well, but it's a dystopian prose fiction novel. Like it's written as a novel, but other elements that are a little bit broader than just the form, or a little bit more specific, I should say, to do with the genre, the fact that it is speculative, the fact that it has, it features, a pastiche in there. It's got Goldstein's manual. It's got various other elements. What about the structure? That's to do with the form, how the text has been built. It's a tripartite structure. It's got 3 parts. So that's tripartite. It kind of makes sense, right? Tri is 3, partite, 3 parts. Tripartite structure. That's where you talk about all of those things, and you talk about the narrative voice. Here it's third person limited narration. Okay, that's the voice. That informs the way we read the novel. So that's all to do with the way that the story is told. So these are the kind of considerations you should have if you get a word like storytelling in the question for the common module. Okay, so the key terms for this particular question are individual and collective human experiences. So obviously we immediately ask ourselves, what are the individual human experiences and what are the collective experiences? And that also goes with like, and what type? Like you can actually use an adjective to talk about those. Are they oppressive experiences? Are they liberating experiences? So I always ask myself what and what type, always for those kinds of questions. And this is the other thing to consider that only the best students will consider. So everyone watching this now is going to consider this, right? Because you're trying to be the best you can be in this exam. And when we're thinking about, what those individual experiences are and what are the collective, this is the thing that a lot of students miss. They don't consider how are the two related? How are individual experiences affected by collective experiences? They don't consider the relationship between the keywords. Students will just, the worst thing you can do, other than not answer the question at all and not use the words of the question, is to actually use these 2 words together in your essay. Because you've got 2 different keywords there, individual and collective, I should never see those 2 words together in your response. It's up to you to separate them. We must separate these and then relate them together. Okay, so tell me what the individual experience is, tell me what the collective experience is, and then tell me how they relate to one another. Best students will separate, define, and relate. Now, individual and collective, separate these. What do I mean by relating them together? Well, obviously, if you have a collective experience of oppression, and notice how I'm using this word here, of oppression, that's a really useful word to help you expand on the key terms of the question. You have a collective experience of oppression that inhibits, it stops, it prevents an individual experience of freedom. So it inhibits, it slows down. There is our relationship phrase. Look at that. Individual experience of freedom. So that's an example, a general example of how you can build a relationship between 2 key words that sit next to each other in the question, but that should never sit next to each other in your answer. Okay, so we have a collective experience of oppression. Of, so important there, because it forces you to do the right thing and actually give me the example of what it is. Because the question hasn't said oppression, you have to tell me it's oppression. Or conformity, is another good one. Collective experience of conformity, again, of, so key, inhibits an individual experience of freedom. We can even just get rid of that for the purpose of this. So a collective experience of conformity inhibits an individual experience of freedom. The of, again, forces us to say something specific. Look here, we're saying something meaningful because we're saying of after the key terms of the question, but we've still engaged with each of those key words. You see, this kind of breakdown is what you should all be doing for your own answers after you do a practice answer to a different kind of question.